Hi everyone, this is the last video of data visualization. Let's see the agenda of today's lecture. We will learn about geom raster, and we will do it by learning some theory and doing some practical work. So let's get started. So what is actually a geom raster? In our programming language, the geom raster function is used to visualize data using a raster image in the ggplot2 library. It is used to represent continuous variables as a grid of cells, each of which is assigned a color based on the value it represents. The function can be used in the combination with other geoms and aesthetics to produce complex visualizations. For example, you can use geom raster in conjunction with ggplot to create a heat map or a representation of data as a color-coded matrix to visualize patterns and relationships in the data. So how to plot using geom raster? Let's see the syntax below. You just have to use the geom raster keyword and pass the parameters such as mapping, data, stat, position, and so on. There are other ways to plot a kind of geom raster as well, which are geom tile and geom contour. So let's make them in our studio by doing some practical work. So first of all, I will load the library of ggplot2 and I will load a dataset of faithful D. Alright, so this dataset contains 3 columns which are eruptions, weighting, and density. Now let's use the first type of function, which is geom type. Well, first of all, I will say raster1, and inside this variable, I use the function of ggplot, and I pass the dataset faithful day. And in the static function, I say take the eruptions on x-axis and weighting on y-axis. And then I say geom tile, and I use the static function, and I say fill equals to density. All right, here let's say raster1, and now I will run it. You can see the density between the eruptions of 4 and 5, and the other densities of values are around the eruptions of 2 and the weighting of 40 to 60, and the other density concentration is between the weighting of 75 to 90 and the eruptions of 4 and 5. Now, for instance, I want to do something different with the color of this density concentration. So I will say raster1 plus scale fill distiller. All right. And here I will pass the palette equals to spectral. Now let's see the difference. You can see here that the higher density concentration is shown with the color of red. And in this point, you can see the concentration of density. And inside the blue area, there is a lower density of values. And yellow shows the middle or the average density concentrations. As you can see here that the highest density is between 4.5 and the weighting of 85. Now let's move forward. Now let's use another function that is similar as well. And I will name it raster2. And here I will say weighting and eruptions. And here I use geom contour instead of geom tile. And inside the geom contour, I use the static function and I say z equals to density. All right, let's run it. So you can see the same thing, which is almost the same as the previous plots made with geom tile. The concentration is between the eruption of 4 and 5, 2 and 3. And from the weighting, the highest concentration is between 85 and here it's 55 and the eruption of 2. So that is how you can create a contour plot. In order to do something interesting, I will add one more parameter in the geom contour function. I will say color equals to, and I will say dot level. Now you know that there is no variable with the name of level, but we have used these two dots and it will create it internally. You can see the difference. The values with the highest level are represented with the color of blue, which you can see here, that contains the most concentration of density, and with the contour lines that are the outermost are represented with a dark color. Let's move on. Now, if you want to give some colors on the background by default, you can say something like, let's name it raster 4. All right. And here you can say z equals to density. And here you can say geom contour field. All right, let's see the difference. Now you can see the color and the levels. The highest level is 0.35 and you can see its concentration here. And these are the lowest density concentration levels. Now, for instance, I want to change my number of bin width and also bins. Then let's name this variable first, raster 5, and we'll make a plot of eruptions versus weighting. And here I will say bins equals to, let's say I want 3 bins for my plot. You can see that there are now 3 bins. One is represented with the yellow color, the other with the blue color, and the other with the purple color. You can also change the bin width, and this time I will say raster 6, and rather than saying bins, I will say bin width. All right, let's say it's 0.001. All right. Now you can see more bin widths here, and these are all the levels on the right side. Now it's time to use the raster function. I will say raster 7, and here I will say ggplot function. I will pass the dataset of fateful day, and I will say geom raster. And inside this function, I use the function of aesthetic, and I say make a plot of eruptions versus weighting and fill equals to density. And here let's say raster 7. You can see the same raster plot as you created with raster 1. So just like I have said that these functions are almost interchangeable. Now what I will do here is you can see tiny dots here So I want to make this plot more smooth. So after the static function, I will use a function of interpolate, and I will pass the value equals to true. Now you can see a smooth raster plot here. Now let's make this raster plot more interesting. I will say raster 8, and here I will say plus scale width is C, and here I will use the parameter of option, and I will say option equals to magma. And after that, this will basically fill the scale color with a magma theme. And here I will say labs equals to, and I will say title equals to, I will say my raster plot. You can also pass titles on X and Y axis. Now, one can also further customize these colors with the help of these scales. Anyway, let's plot it. Oh, you can see a beautiful raster plot here with the title of my raster plot, and you can see the density here. The theme is also quite good. So this is how you can generate a raster plot with the help of tile, contour, and raster function. Now let's get back to slides. I have got some homework for you. Here is the link of the dataset, and here are your tasks. The first one is to make plots using geom raster. Then you have to write down the insights you have found after making the plots for each variable. Now good luck, see you next time.